This Cam Sutton thing is absolutely bizarre. We begin with Cam Sutton having an arrest warrant out for him, the former Tennessee quarterback wanted for domestic assault. Then suddenly they can't find him. And then reports coming out that he had blacked out at the University of Tennessee, just walking down the road at times, and that he had a long history of concussion like symptoms. Wow, this does not make the powers that be, which was Butch Jones at the time, look very good. Caleb, you provide me with some fodder here, because I'm going to go ahead and tell you that if the NCAA and what it once was is so upset about players getting paid or illegal recruiting visits, then what do you do to a guy like Butch Jones, who put players on the field who were not ready to go back on the field? I remember that regime openly talking about how easy it was to be taught how to fake these tests. And a lot of players did. It blows me away with all that we know now with head injuries that you would put a guy out there that has such serious issues as has been reported with Cam Sutton. But we all know Butch Jones is a sociopath, so maybe we shouldn't be shocked.
Yes, so let's break this down real quick. And this is news of today. Steelers coach, according to the Detroit Free Press, Steelers coach Mike Tomlin said he reached out to Cam Sutton, who played for the Steelers before the Lions, in light of the off-field issues that Sutton's dealing with. Asked if he talked to Sutton, Tomlin said, quote, "None of your business," which leads me to believe that he reached out and can't. Leads me to believe Mike reached out and can't get a hold of him. The whereabouts of Cam Sutton.
Well, no. I think that means he did talk to him.
You think he did talk to him?
Yeah, if you say I don't know, because it's easier to just say no. Couldn't get him.
Well, maybe the whereabouts of Cam Sutton have been in question for 5 days now. People don't know where he is. And
this is very, very scary situation that could end in a very, very bad way.
Yes. And so we want to start with whoever was victimized by Cam Sutton's assault is the most important person to care about here. That your heart's always with the victim.
Amen.
But and I know you want to hold the person who does the assault accountable. But why don't we hold, if you're worried about victims, then you should be holding account conditions that lead to these assaults, i.e. not worrying about players' heads when they're having head injuries. And guys, Cam Sutton was a sophomore in 2014. Blacked out, I think it was the Missouri game, he said. He spoke, and I apologize up front. I did not see the story when it came out. I don't know why it didn't trend more. In 2014, I was covering college football back then. I don't know why this didn't trend and why I didn't find it done. But Sutton said he would black out regularly.
Yeah, walking down the street and just kind of wake up. Elias said no bleeping way he legitimately cleared concussion protocols. It wouldn't surprise me if it comes up that he wasn't given one. If the NCAA wants to do something that really matters now, since they can't govern money and they can't govern transfers, this is it. Safety of the game, which ironically you pointed out to me is why they were originally developed.
That's why Teddy Roosevelt formed the NCAA.
So do that. You have nothing to do. Give yourself some usefulness. Maybe you'll keep a job. Go after Butch Jones. Suspend him for a year if you find a history of this stuff. And to me, Cam Sutton saying what he said is almost enough proof. I want a little bit more proof. But Travis, you're right. There's really no need for the NCAA. Arkansas State should fire him right now. I mean, if I'm one of the Arkansas State players' parents, Butch Jones better pick up my phone call today, right now, the next 5 minutes. I don't care if he's got 84 other scholarship players on his roster. Pick up my phone call or I got a problem.
Yes, so obviously this was Butch Jones' second year at Tennessee when the report came that Cam Sutton was reportedly blacking out when he walked down the street and there's two other things we have to get out with Butch Jones, and this is why we're bringing Butch Jones into this, guys. We're bringing him into this because this is not Butch Jones' first dust-up with allegedly forcing players to play when they had concussions. Who remembers the Brett Kendrick incident? Brett Kendrick played the second half against Kentucky in 2017 with the concussion, according to a report from the Reed Optional at that time. Now, how he got cleared by team doctors, I don't know. But yes, he was cleared to play with the concussion in the second half. And the athletic director John Curry at the time came up with a statement that outlined concussion protocol, but he didn't say that protocol was or was not properly followed. Curry was about to fire Butch Jones anyway. This is November of 2017. Also, Chris Weatherd, who unleashed and unloaded everything to know about Butch Jones on a Fox Sports Radio interview in 2020, basically said that there were notable times where Butch Jones oftentimes played favorites. And at one point, Weatherd needed time off because of a personal issue. Jones said he didn't believe him. And then another point he brought out where Jones tried to force him out when he was hurt. So
how can you not get suspended for something like this? How can you get suspended for so many things and they can't call up old Butch and say, we're going to investigate what went on there? This is an easy investigation too, because most people would talk.
Yeah, you just
this is not a difficult. This is not a difficult investigation in which somebody's going to lose their eligibility and a coach could get fired because he gave money at the wrong time. This is an easy one. Everybody wants to talk. I could get this done by the end of the day.
And so let's break down what we know about this with Butch Jones, because we can't say for sure he cleared any concussion protocols. There's no direct thing on that, but let's say what we do know. We know that Brett Kendrick played the second half of a game under him with a concussion. We know that Chris Weatherd is alleging a lot of player abuse under Butch Jones, from verbal abuse to saying he'll send you back to Dallas and stuff like that. We know that Cam Sutton said 10 years ago that he would have regular blackouts walking, and Dave has firsthand accounts more than I do. And we know that Anton Davis resigned as the VFL coordinator because of verbal abuse from Butch Jones.
It's true.
And we know, and Dave can tell you more than I can because Dave has connections, of Butch Jones blatantly verbally abusing players and maybe going beyond verbal abuse with a lot of his players.
I don't know if I've told this story in the show before, but I'll tell it again because the show's grown so much. If I told it 6 months ago, we got like 15 times the listeners. So, but I'll tell this really quick. I mean, I had a player that called me and said, Dave, I just want to let you know that if my son gets charged with a felony, it's Butch Jones's fault, which seems like a really weird statement to make, right? So I said, I don't understand at all, Mr. And I'm not going to tell you who it is. But Butch Jones called this player, according to this player's dad, a GD, woman's part word, okay? And this family was deeply religious. And just religious or not, the rule is you can say you're acting like a jerk. You don't say you are a jerk. You don't call names. But religious or not, the family was very religious, and it was all this player could do not to knock Butch Jones out. Well, the dad wanted to call me. It was so serious, and just tell me that, hey, if you hear of this happening, I want a backstory that you know why, because he's being abused, and I don't know that he's going to be able to contain himself. That's real stuff, man. And I mean, you do not have to ask her. He called me. I didn't call him. I didn't even know about this, Caleb. And you could have an investigation and wrap it up, NCAA, in 2 or 3 weeks. And then Butch Jones needs to be suspended for about a month or a year.
Yeah, and there should have been. You're right. And honestly, I'm surprised looking back. We know more now. Should have been investigations when Cam Sutton said what he said 10 years ago. Should have been an investigation when Brett Kendrick came out and said he played with a concussion.
But it's like, from where though, Caleb? Where does the investigation come from?
The minute that news gets out, you can spark an investigation for any reason.
But how does it?
Oh, that's what I mean. The NCAA should have done that 10 years ago. You're right. They should be in the business of investigating these things. The NFL investigates them.
Okay, but here's how bad Butch Jones was. He ran 2 reporters that I respect very much off of the beat because he was so abusive to them. Who reports it? It was so tyrannical over there that reporters were afraid, players were afraid, everybody was afraid. I mean, it was that bad. So how does that story get out? Because if you report it and something comes up where it's a gray area or Tennessee backs him instead of you, which goodness gracious, instead of the correct way, the honest truth, I've seen happen personally. then you're at a point where you don't really have any options. That was Butch Jones. That's the way he tried to throw around his power. Fortunately, for those that are a part of Tennessee's athletic department, he wasn't a good football coach, so he wasn't around long.
There's also, I don't know. There's also the sexual assault lawsuit that happened while he was head coach against the university. I'm going to be fair. I'm staying off of that because AJ Johnson was acquitted in about 45 minutes, and the Knox County DA had no evidence to bring that charge. And whatever you think happened, there was no reason to stall a trial like that for 4 years.
And by the way, I think 99% of police are good people. I think there are bad people and everything. And I'm not saying they're bad people in this instance, but if there's ever a time to call out a police department, that would have been it. And Butch Jones didn't have the stones to do that.
No, he didn't. That's true. You're right. And it's funny because he has law enforcement in his family. He should have known that the law enforcement usually knows when there's more abuse of power. They know better than the actual citizens a lot of times. So yeah, he should have known. But
Smoky Mountain Red. Can I answer Smoky Mountain Red's question real quick? And I'll get right back to you. He said, serious question, not making fun. How can a person be scared of him? Because you didn't have NIL and you didn't have a transfer portal and he controlled your future.
And you're right. And also, he was much more popular in 2014 than he was in 2016. It was easier. The thing with coaches is they have a lot of power when people still believe in them as far as winners. Don't they, Dave? That's where they have the most power.
Yep. And absolutely.
Yeah. And that's why it happens everywhere. You see the negative stories come out like 3 years down the road, like when they're already on the hot seat. Now, with Derek Dooley, you saw him immediately because people didn't like the Derek Dooley hire to begin with. I'm sure you remember that. But most of the time, it's down the road. Guys, I reported on this then, and it was suspicious to me. Butch Jones didn't have a strength coach for a year. He didn't have a strength coach in 2016.
That's bizarre. We talked about that at our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. He brought that up, and I was like, I'd forgotten all about that.